It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Wednesday, July 19th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have a Provi in the media, the Bible word study on the Protestant Reformation, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing? It is a wonderful Wednesday. We have service tonight. I really hope that you'll pray for your preachers and give them great feedback. If you haven't yet, go ahead, leave a like and comment to build our community. I'm just really happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other each and every day. This week's Sunday message, God who makes the right history at the right time. So yes, it is Wednesday. It is hump day, and I hope you guys have enjoyed half your week already. Gonna be an awesome service tonight. Make sure you pray for your preachers. They are doing such an amazing job. I can't wait to hear the word because this week's message was powerful. If you listen to my Sunday message word study on the Monday podcast, there's just so many things I realized from it, and I hope it's something that all of us too can think about together as we go through the word. It's been an awesome week for me. I've been spending some time with some members. I had another member just visit me last night, and we had some great conversation. I think we went to a cafe. I met his parents, and then had some good coffee, had dinner, and then after I went to go drop my friend off at the airport. And but on the way there, we stopped by Tim Hortons, got some donuts. The store was closed, the drive-thru was open, so we were just in the parking lot talking for a couple hours. And it was just refreshing to have these deep conversations, and it really made me think even more about what to talk about for today and the things that we can discuss with our churches and such also. So you know what's funny? Actually, before I even get to this conversation, I'm really excited about the comment section right now. I love it. The amount of thought and effort, insight into each person's heart and mind. Oh man, and it's kind of funny too at the same time because it's text messaging. It's a comment section, so you can't really get the nuance, and you don't see facial expression, stuff like that too. But I found it quite funny that I was talking to other girls in the comment section about freezing their eggs. Tell me that's kind of crazy. We're talking about hey, a good idea. Some people can actually freeze their eggs, and they're like, oh, they're so expensive. And I'm like, oh, and that's not the full process. It was just it just felt like a girl's conversation. It's you should freeze your eggs. It's totally worth it and allows you to get married at a later time. Go ahead, freeze your eggs. Right? Or it's yeah, freeze the eggs. Get it done. You can do it. And so I was the feeling was, it was just entertaining but insightful at the same time. So you guys out there, you know me in the comment section. I think probably 99% I will be responding to everyone. Sometimes I may miss it, maybe one comment here or there, but I do my best to comment on everything just to see what people are saying. So I really, really enjoy the comment section, and it's good to hear what people are thinking and the different thoughts that are out there that allows me to think and see different angles. One of the things that Sunstein talked about before too, I like this analogy, this parable Sunstein used about leaders. Why it's good to have different leaders, right? So if you have different leaders, different head leaders, different department leaders, or whatever it is, the way he put it is we're kind of rough, uncut diamonds, and every leader that you meet and you are under, they kind of show you different angles and they cut different sides to you, and that's why it's good to talk to many different leaders, get many different sides and angles also. So I thought it's when in the comment section, I'm listening to a lot of people, and they're oh, there's something I didn't think about. So I really really enjoy the comment section. So leave a comment. Love to hear anything. It could be comments. It could be feedback. It could be anything that you guys want. I would love just pour it in, and I'm really looking forward to those. This week's poll is quite interesting, don't you guys think? About like all things being considered. For a head leader, would you prefer a single male, single female, married male, married female? 1 second, guys. Man, my nose has been really runny these days. I'm thinking, is it? But I've never had allergies. I'm thinking, did I pick up allergies as I got older? So, yeah. So my nose has been runny, so I'm just stuffing my nose right now. But it was an interesting poll, and a lot of people out there are giving their thoughts on it, and I enjoy it too. Like just seeing what people are thinking about this one situation. And at the moment, guess who's on top? It's actually married males are number one at 40%. 40% married males. Okay, and it's by far at the top. Because the next, 40% for married males, and then it's single males is 15% at second, and then both single females and married females are at 5% each, which is quite interesting. I think that just kind of looking at the stats for this, like what did I put down? I actually put down for myself personally, I would choose like a married male as number one, and number two, I'm still uncertain. Is either between a single female or a married female. It's one of the two. Why? And it's like, why would I put the married male as the single male as the last one? Maybe it's just my personal experience that I'm thinking about that in not a very like high way, right? So, but the number one for me, definitely, I put married male. And just kind of like 40% of everyone else in the audience also. But, because, the whole point is if all four of those people were trained properly with the same level of skill, and I thought to myself is, how would I really understand how good it would be? You know what I mean? How good would it really be? How could I know if most churches have never had a married male at the top, right? So for me, what I looked at more was repeating history. I looked solely at the repeated history, where in the beginning, when you had the Catholic Church, there was monks and nuns, and they were running the show. And then when the Protestant movement came in, basically everyone was married. Like in any church, Christian church you'll find right now, all the pastors are married. Like you'll never, like I don't think I can even name one church that I know that has a single male or female as the head leader, right? So in Protestant, you'll see every leader is married, and because they've been doing it for like 400 years now, the roles are very defined too. Like there's a married male, and then the female is a pastor's wife, which is actually a major role in the church, right? And this is why not everyone marries a pastor, because when you marry a pastor, that means the woman will automatically take the position of pastor's wife. And that is something that we don't see very often in Providence churches, because even if you're married, what's going to happen is the woman has to work, right, to support the family, because pastors don't get paid as much. They don't get paid to support a family. And I do hope that in the future, near future, I hope that that's something that does change too. But the pastor's wife is such a big role. Preaching, education, taking care of the woman, the married woman, and stuff like that too. So I look at that as kind of as repeating history, that eventually it'll reach that point. Eventually, it's going to reach that point where both the husband and wife will both have their defined roles in the church, and the church will have enough finance to support the entire family. So I was thinking something along that line, like, I think that might be a little bit better. I think that can actually work, right? And I think there's one thing that I never considered until someone else told me is just the image. And you're like, what do you mean the image? There is a huge difference where, like, for instance, like this is something that most of us, I don't think we thought about, is when you introduce your head leader to your parents, It's very different when it's like an older married man with kids. It is much different than having like a younger single male or female. The image is much different, right? And the parents are going to be more trusting if there's an actual family there too. And I'm not saying that they should be more trusted. I'm just saying that's the image that it portrays. It's much more safe. So that is something that I was like, oh, I never thought about that before, but it does make sense, right? That, you're not going to have like these single pastors because, there's always these problems that could come about from it. But yeah, that's kind of where my thoughts are at the moment. But I'm not, at the moment because I'm going by repeated history. Personally, I do think eventually the head leaders, as the churches grow, I just think it's going to be married when you have a lot of married families. Yeah, because I like this is my personal experience, and from the other people that I talk to, and I'd say probably maybe more with men, but it's very very difficult to counsel when, like, say a couple, like a married couple, are not doing well. Like, how would you counsel that when you don't really understand? Counseling when it has to do with children, raising children. I think those are a couple things that I think would be a disadvantage, but that's going to be over half your church in the future when it grows. So I do think it's something that we do have to think about for future's sake. Yeah. But yeah, I put married male as number one. And two, I would put either, like I said, either single or married female. I'm not sure which one yet. And I put single male as last. And that just kind of shows you that I'm like, no, I don't ever want to do that again. That one is probably just a personal thing more than anything else. So, yeah. So that's what I had. But I like looking at these stats and seeing what people's thoughts are. And I thought to myself, like, oh, that's really interesting how people are very similar. Because now, if you look, 45% is the males and 10% is the females, right? Because it's 40% for married male, 15% for, 55%, right? Yeah, 40% for married males and 15% for single males, which means 55% of people kind of just want a male, but of them, 40, you're talking like 2/3 are wanting the married male. And then single and married females are 5% each. So it's like, if you just compare guys to girls, it's 55% to 10%, right? And this is nothing to do with like, oh, this is guys versus girls kind of thing. It's totally not that. This is just kind of what we're thinking, what we see, what we've experienced, what we understand, what we think would probably be better if we were to have, for head leaders in the future. And I think it's something that a lot of churches or maybe even headquarters and stuff should think about also, right? And like I have no knocks on people. My main thing right now, which is the biggest thing for me, is not even so much about the sexes. For me, it's more about the skill level. And the only reason I brought this one out here is because imagine the skill level was all the same. Which one would you prefer? And it's very, very interesting to see what people are writing down. And I guess it comes from their own personal experiences also, what they think would be better also. Right? So I found that to be kind of insightful to see who people thought would make the better head leader. So let me get into the conversation I had with my friend last night. Like I told you, I was up until 11:30 p.m. in the parking lot at Tim Hortons, right next to the airport. Just at the parking lot, we had a bunch of conversations. I can't go over all of them because there are just too many of them. But one conversation I thought was quite interesting is the need to get rid of the evangelism merit system of Providence. Now, what does that mean? It doesn't mean that. What it means is I think we shouldn't we were talking that we shouldn't care as much for it. Because there is a merit system and evangelism is such a big thing, and then there's these big prizes for people who evangelize a lot at the end of the year, right? That people are very centered on evangelism. And that evangelism to me, if Providence was a business, because we're in the business of lives, evangelism is like sales, kind of, right? In that sense, right? If you were to do a direct comparison. And I thought to myself do we really need to have that system of like rewards and the system of looking at how big it really is? And because one of the things that we were talking about last night was there are some people who are so disappointed or hurt because their name was not put on the evangelism list that was given to Sunstream or whatever it was, or people have to prove that they helped evangelize someone enough. Where sometimes what we do for people is done behind the scenes.
But doesn't that kind of seem like demeaning, I guess? Where someone's like, oh, I help with this person to evangelize this person. And the person says to you, prove it. Prove that you like, it's kind of demeaning. And like by the end of the year, when you're doing your reports and stuff, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like a system that is very graceful and godly. Does that make any sense to you guys? Like, I thought to myself, isn't it better to just get rid of the merit system? And, let us be those that let's just let God deal with it, right? God will bless those that evangelize. God will bless them on earth or in heaven or whatever it is. And then instead of us trying to hang on to newcomers or, like we talked about a little bit yesterday about being possessive of them, maybe it's like people will start to just save lives. And they don't belong to anyone, but they all belong to God. And all these lives, like, don't you think it'd be a little bit different if there was no merit system? No one would be like, you can't help but think about yourself in that situation and the merit that you're going to receive. Where if it's really just about life, loving life, then we would start thinking about what is the best situation for that newcomer. You know what I mean? Because I think it's quite arrogant for someone to say like, well, I'm the best and there's no one else who could do it besides. Like, for me, I'm just like, I don't know if that's really the best way. Like, if anything else, shouldn't we just want people to pass? We want people to survive in this history. Not just survive and thrive in this history instead of holding so tightly onto them. Like, in the end, wouldn't you just love it if our churches grew? Like, if you're a church of 50 people, then in the next 2 years, you'll be at like 60. And then the next 2 years, you'll be at 75. And then the next 2 years, you'll be at like 90. And it's just growing with new people. It's boisterous and people are happy. The community is just growing in that way. And as we're talking about it, it makes more sense. But there was one thing that we never, one thing that we all agreed that was going to be the really, really tough part. And definitely the tough part of everything is going to be changing people's perception. I think that's going to be the massive thing that people will not be able to fully, they won't be able, that would be the thing that would be very difficult for people to really grasp. Is switching that perception of evangelism. I evangelized 20. Like, I think one of the questions that I don't want to ask anymore is how many people did you evangelize? Like, I don't know if that's a really fair question anymore because it's hard to say, create arguments or these or that things are going to happen. And I thought to myself, I was like, yeah, maybe that's not a very good question, but we were talking and we're like, yeah, it's such an important thing for us to understand when it comes to the human mind. We can't make something like life, the saving of lives, into something that's a merit. And I think that's something, because then you start looking at people as commodities, right? Or like things that you buy or you attain. And I think that's not a very healthy way of looking at people. We start treating them in that way too. So that was something that I thought was a very, very good conversation. I think a lot of us, I would love to hear what your comments would be on this. Like, how much would it matter for you to get the evangelism merit? And, if we're going to be super, and I want you guys to be super honest. If there's a merit system, do we kind of hold it more? Like, oh, but I want my name to be on there because I did this and I did that. And then people feel disappointed. People get hurt by this and that. And of course, with our lips, we're going to be saying stuff like, come on, guys, it's about life. It's all about life. We just want to save life, guys. Save life. Like, it's like in our minds, we're kind of saying that. But reality is,
like you want attention from, like say Sunsteam, you want attention from like the leaders, and and for other people, like this moved into another conversation. But please write a comment on that has the merit system kind of affected you in a negative way, right? And I'll say, I'm not going to say positive, I'm going to say negative, because what I do know is there is not a lot of evangelism that goes on. So if there's not even a lot of evangelism goes on, like you're kind of trying to get as much as you can so that people could say, oh, like, like think about even the blessing. Like you're supposed to have 3 people evangelize. It's like, I'm not even qualified. What do I do? Kind of thing. I think the merit system, or maybe not the system itself, or maybe just the way we do it, may not be the wisest way to do it, especially the way the human mind works. So I want to hear your comments on, has the system we've done so far kind of affected you more negatively or more positively, right? And I'm sure if you've evangelized 10 people a year, you're going to be straight up, it's positive kind of thing, right? But we're looking at the vast majority of people, because we know that evangelism isn't very huge in, just in general in most churches, that it's hard for us to say that many people are really benefiting from it. Right? So I don't know. That's something that I thought. The second thing that came up to my mind, and which it led into, was when you have a meritocracy in life, like in a church. Like I understand meritocracy when it's merit-based in like sales. When all you're doing is selling something and you get more for selling more, that makes sense to me. But we're kind of in the business of life. Right? We're doing the farming of life. It takes care. There's no like single method in how to do it. And one thing that eventually our conversation went into was how people view titles. I found that to be quite interesting too. And my general perception, like when I really took a big picture look at it, it's really not about being a great leader. It doesn't have anything to do with being a leader. It has to do with how much merit you have. Oh, you evangelized 10 people, you're a pastor. Oh, you did this, okay, you can be a head leader now. And I thought to myself, wow, that might be the wrong way of doing it. And then we got into the conversation of, well, Sunsteam's the one that gives the titles. And we're like, wait a second, so are we blaming Sunsteam for this? But then I was like, wait a second. But if you've become a leader, the another thing you'll realize is that Sunsteam doesn't like weekly or monthly or annually. He doesn't just go to people and say, like, go to every church in the world and say, all right, guys, I want this person a pastor, this person's a pastor. Like, Sunsteam doesn't know the full situation everywhere. So what does he rely on? He relies on reports, which means that the titles, the leaders play such a big role in who gets a title. Right? And it's very interesting, because then now it's all dependent upon what does that leader think a leader should be. And I was listening to this podcast from PBD, like Patrick Bet David, and he's talking about his business, and he says leaders are thinking the wrong way. And the example he gave was he has a company that's in 49 states and 15,000 workers that he takes care of. And of course, you have managers and regional managers, stuff like that. And what happened once is he met a manager. And that manager, even though his workers have the manager's number, he never answers it. And what the manager said is, hey, guess what? These people got to earn it. These people need to earn my time. If they're not going to work hard, if they're not going to do this, if they're not going to do that, then I'm not going to pick up the phone for them. Right? They have to earn my time. I'm the manager, right? I'm someone here that can help them to be that much better. But if they're not going to put effort in, if they're not going to work hard, then I'm not going to answer the phone. And this Patrick Bet David guy says that's the wrong way of thinking, right? So that way of thinking is the people below have to work so hard just to get the attention of the leader. And I think when I thought about that, I was like, wow, isn't that kind of a little bit how Providence is? Like everyone's just vying for the attention of Sunsteam. And when it comes to leadership, it's like, oh, I'm the new leader. Why? Sunsteam put me there. So it's kind of like, oh, you're there because you got the title because Sunsteam put you there. So now we have to all obey and agree that this person's the right person kind of thing, right? But what Patrick Bet-David said at this point, he says, no, if you are a true leader, it's almost like it's a presidential campaign, which means you have to be the one working for your workers so that they look to you and they want to follow you. You know what I mean? Like the leader has to be the one helping their workers, making sure that they can be the best that they can be. And if the leader does this and these followers all like the leader, they're all like, wow, this leader's great. He's always helped me. He's always giving me his time, this, and this. Then this person becomes a true leader because he led by helping people, leading by example, and these people want to follow this person, right? And I thought to myself, is like, that's so true, where even when I look at how leaders are put onto churches, it's not done in a way where this leader is so good, right? That everybody wants to follow this one leader. Like everybody likes this leader. Everybody thinks this leader is great. Everyone wants this person to be the leader. But instead, I think sometimes we're thinking, or maybe we're a little bit backwards. We're like, oh, well, as long as I make Sunseem happy, I will get the title. And once I get the title, I'll be a leader. And I think that's the wrong way of doing it. It's almost like if you want to be a pastor, you have to evangelize 10 people. So then you evangelize 10 people, but then you're a leader? And the answer is no. Just because you evangelize 10 people doesn't mean you're a leader. Yes, evangelizing 10 people does help and show that, you've put in the effort and you're someone who goes the extra mile and someone who is like has that mentality, but it doesn't make you a leader. And I was thinking like, man, maybe we should be even the way when we talk to leadership, how we change the way of what a leader should actually be. Because in my conversation with my buddy, it's like not everyone should be a leader. Everyone has their strengths, everyone has their weaknesses, but not everyone should be a leader. Some are there to lead and some are there to support. Everyone's got a different role. Not everyone should be leading. And I think a lot of times people are not self-aware, thinking that they should be leading, when in reality, a lot of times these people should not be leading. Do you know what I mean? So that was another thing that really came up, and I thought to myself, I was like, oh, that's another way that we should really think about is people are so like fixed on just trying to make Sunseem happy. That's it, right? Oh, get his attention. And I think there's been a lot of problems because of that in the past. But when you really, really think about it, what does Sunseem want? Like, what does God want actually? What does God really want? He wants leaders that love, leaders that serve. And yeah, that's the thing that came up too is leaders have to learn to serve others more than be treated like a leader. They have to serve, right? Serving doesn't mean you're going out and you're giving food to people, like literal serving. But I remember when I was in the former faith too, the pastors go into houses and they're praying for them. They're counseling people. They're always out there serving. They're not the people that, and they're serving, and this is why they're rightfully treated as the top. And when I saw like the leaders at my parents' church when I was growing up also, oh, they were amazing. Like they were pastorly. And I thought that was like, wow, like they were really pastorly, really helping out, really caring and really sincere and just serving others. And it's kind of like, Jesus says, I came here, I did not come here to be, like for you to treat me like a king. I came here to serve, right? I came here to serve and I came here to save people. And that conversation I thought was a really, really good one too. But I want your thoughts on those also, because I think these are things that will definitely help our churches in the future too. Either way. Okay. So that is, that's kind of the things that I want to talk about this morning. And I hope you guys it was thought provoking. Go ahead and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear what you guys are thinking about this too. But let's move into our first break of the day.
Yeah, every moment with you in my life lasts far beyond time, for all eternity. All the days we smiled, all the days we assured one another are precious memories. So we won't always be roses and sunshine. There are mountains, there are cliffs we must climb. But even so, I want to go with you. I want to go with you.
you, love you, only you, love. True love, how can it be explained? You can't express it, no matter what words you use, they're not enough. Your existence is love in itself, being with you each second, each hour, every single day. I want to talk of all things, even the small things, oh thank you. I love you so much, can't keep it to myself. You are the reason I am living, I'm loving you, I live in you, yeah.
Sometimes I feel like your heart is a dream, but this is far more real now than anything. When you're beside me, there's no one so close, there is no one else more precious to me. So it won't always be roses and sunshine. There are mountains, there are cliffs we must climb. But even so, I want to go with you. I want to go with you where the light brightly shines. More than before,
Even more than yesterday,
more today.
love you even more today.
We've become more special this way.
Closer to you every day.
As the days keep adding up, they keep adding up. You've become irreplaceable to me, and really I
Only you.
love you. Even as time goes on, our love for each other never changes or fades. I look forward to making myself to match you more perfectly now. More than before,
Even more than yesterday,
more today.
love you even more today.
We've become more special this way.
Closer to you every day.
As the days keep adding up, they keep adding up. You've become irreplaceable to me, and really I more than before.
Even more than yesterday,
More today.
love you even more today.
We've become more special this way.
Closer to you every
As
day.
the days keep adding up, they keep adding up. You've become irreplaceable to me, and really I
Only you.
love you, love you, love you. I'm loving you, I live in you.
I'm loving you, I live in you, like the air that surrounds me, like the air that I
I'm
breathe.
loving you, I live in you.
I'm loving you, I live in you. We'll be together like this, live forever loving you.
I'm loving you, I live in you.
I'm loving you, I live in you, like the air that surrounds me, like the air that I
I'm
breathe.
loving you, I live in you.
I'm loving you, I live in you. We'll be together like this, live forever loving you.
All right, so let's get into today's word study. And every Wednesday we have the Bible word study. We go into history, we go into books, we go into figures in the Bible. And today I want to talk about something a little bit different. I want to talk about the Protestant Reformation. And we all know that that's the time of Martin Luther. He was going against the sale of indulgences and working for your salvation. But something interesting is I found an article talking about the Reformation that happened 400 years ago, and what are the lasting impacts on church and culture. And the reason why this is very interesting to see like what the Reformation did for us as a culture around the world for the last 400 years. And it makes me think about what Providence is going to do for the next 1,000 years, right? So when you see how much influence there is just from the Protestant Reformation, it's something you'll look at and say, wow, I never knew it was something that impacted us that much, right? So, 1517, we know this is a time for Martin Luther. He was a monk and a theology professor. And of course, we know the story of him nailing the 95 Theses to the door of the town church, and it sparked the Protestant Reformation, right? And Luther, he was against the sale of indulgences, which means, you pay money and your parents or family members you love that are in purgatory will go to heaven if you pay that type of money. And, it was a fundraising campaign basically to, basically selling salvation, and it was approved by the Pope, right? And the whole purpose of that was to build St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. So when you buy these indulgences, churchgoers were told that they would receive forgiveness of sins and time off from purgatory. That's pretty crazy, right? And the campaign even had a marketing slogan, and the slogan was, "As soon as the coin in the coffer rings, the soul from purgatory springs." Right? So they even had a slogan for this, and people were paying money so that they wouldn't have to stay long in purgatory, or they could be forgiven of their sins. And Luther was appalled at this practice and called for it to end immediately. And of course, not before long, when you know the story of Martin Luther, there was an outcry for church reform, and they wanted them to move past indulgences and spread. This reform kind of spread from that one village Luther was in, and it went to all of Europe. All of Europe received the news, and they're like, yeah, let's get some church reform going. And it wasn't just Calvin, it wasn't just Luther, but Calvin after him, Zwingli after him, were the successors that took up the challenge of leading the church back to biblical standards of faith. And it's really interesting to see how all this changed, because the church got that corrupt. But from that one Reformation, we're going to see a ton of things that shaped and changed Western culture, right? Even to this present day. So let's take a look at the first one here. When you think about the Protestant Reformation, the Reformation's impact begins with the central emphasis on the 5 solas. Now, what is that? The 5 solas are salvation by grace alone, through faith alone, in Christ alone, according to the scriptures alone, to the glory of God alone. So those are the 5 solas, right? Salvation by grace alone, through faith alone, in Christ alone, according to scriptures alone, and to the glory of God alone. Those are the 5 solas that came from the Reformation. And this is like the core biblical teaching of salvation by simple faith in Jesus Christ, finished sacrifice of dying on the cross, right? However, the problem happened with the medieval church. They muddled these 5 solas and replaced them by a system of human merit mixed with God's grace, okay? And its rediscovery by the reformers remains their greatest legacy to the church. So they brought the church back on track. So as the heart of the gospel, the justification by faith in Christ alone has come under fresh attack in every era, including our own that we're living in right now. And it's both from surrounding cultures and from within the church itself. So even in the New Testament times, the apostles had to deal with challenges to it. As Paul did this most passionately in his letter to the Galatians. And Martin Luther, never shy about being direct, insisted that justification by faith is a central truth on which the church stands or falls, and that was as true 5 centuries ago as it is today, right? So it's that big thing, argument between saved by faith or saved by works, right? And of course, right now, through the Protestant Reformation, it's all about faith, and nothing but faith. And then when we come to Providence, we realize that it's actually not saved only by faith and not only by works, but it's saved by both. Both are necessary. If you truly, truly have faith, then your faith will manifest into action, right? But what Luther did at that time is, because the church was so far into saved by works, he had to bring people back to the gospel. What are the 5 solas? Salvation by grace alone, through faith alone, in Christ alone, according to scriptures alone, to the glory of God alone. Those are the 5 things. So that is what they say. This is probably the most important contribution that the Reformation gave to the church itself. Okay? Now, at the time of the Reformation, very interesting, cultural Christianity dominated Europe. So what's cultural Christianity? Which basically means that everybody was considered a Christian simply by virtue of being born and baptized into the church. That's the whole reason that makes you a Christian. But there was also a clear church hierarchy. Like famous saints from the past, as well as members of the clergy, were in a class by themselves. And like average churchgoers had little part in the life of the church beyond showing up on Sunday or hearing a sermon and taking communion, right? But as the Reformation began, what happened is they began to read the scriptures with fresh eyes. And they saw that the church was meant to be different. Rather than incorporating everyone in society by default, the church was made up of believers called out by God from the wider culture. Moreover, all believers had equal access to God through faith, not just the clergy, not just the saints. And there was no separate priestly class. Every believer was a saint who could intercede for others and have a vital role as a member of the body of Christ, right? So you see that there's two big things that changed too. Spiritually speaking, over the last 400 years from the Reformation, not everyone's a Christian just because you're baptized. It's much bigger than that, right? And the second thing was everyone has access to God. It doesn't matter what your role was. It's all about kind of what is your faith and what you do with your faith, right? And that's kind of what Providence is like right now. It's not just about do you believe, because do you believe gets you in. But on top of that is, do you listen to the word and put it into action, which puts you up, like, you raise levels in heaven. And it's not by, it's not because you have a title, right? It's not because, you were a pastor or you were a head leader. No, it's nothing by those things. It's by the life that you actually lived. So, that's a really, really big, significant impact on Christianity from the Reformation also. Another thing that the Reformation did, and this is very interesting, is since there's this newfound emphasis on the church as a body of believers, this realization brought kind of a further realization, which is not everyone in the broader culture was a Christian. There were a lot of people in the wider world who didn't know God and needed to hear the gospel. So the church had always known this and had always sent out missionaries. But with the Reformation, evangelism took on a new urgency and eventually gave rise to the various foreign and domestic missionary movements. So you see, Reformation kind of pushed the missionary movements of missionizing inside your country and outside. And it's a very, very big thing in Christianity today. So another huge impact of the Reformation was sending out, evangelism became a real thing. Not everyone is Christian just for the sake you were born in the church or whatever, right? So that's another big thing, is evangelism became a bigger thing. Now, we'll go a little bit more wider into the world when it comes to language and literacy. So in the centuries before the Reformation, the Bible was a closed book for most of the general public, right? Books in general, rare and expensive. Illiteracy was high. Church services, as well as most books, including the Bible, were in Latin, which only scholars and members of the clergy could understand. However, with the advent of the printing press, books became more readily available. They became cheaper. And at the same time, what did the Reformers do? The Reformers recognized that scriptures were the supreme authority for faith and practice in the church. So they began to translate the Bible into the everyday common language and conducting church services in the everyday language. And when you blend all these factors together, it led to a level of biblical literacy unheard of since the New Testament times, right? Imagine only the clergy, the people who are super educated, can understand the Bible and the sermons, which means that they have control of the word and they can tell you whatever they think it means. But since they opened it up, the printing press came out and they translated the Bible into the common language. It fosters the modern development of literature in native tongues all over Europe. And for the first time, common people could read the words of God and worship him in their own language. It was a huge thing that changes even today, or else we'd all still be listening to it in Latin. And we wouldn't be as educated because we'd rely on the clergy. And if you take it one step further, the wide availability of the Bible and its renewed status at the center of church life created a heightened need for education. Because now regular churchgoers would have to be able to read, discuss, and understand the scriptures. And naturally, broader education was not limited to learning the Bible, and nor was it the sole province of the Reformers, having been a hallmark of the earlier Renaissance. So when you think about this, the modern concept of public education, available to all members of society, owes a bulk of its impetus to the Reformation. So that's a huge thing right there also. What else did the Reformation do? It kind of helped people explore and celebrate through arts. So, prior to the Reformation, the Renaissance had given rise to a new interest in the natural world, expressed through more realistic art and the beginnings of the scientific method, okay? But in light of Scripture's portrayal of a good creation and the cultural mandate to care for it, the influence of the Reformers expanded the scope of the arts and sciences. So works of art were no longer restricted to religious subjects. They could be about anything. Landscapes, bowls of fruit, bottles of wine, everyday domestic scenes, even fantastic subjects drawn from the artist's imagination. Likewise, music could have non-religious lyrics or no lyrics at all, just instrumental beauty for its own sake. Scientific inquiry also progressed by quantum leaps, fueled by the conviction that a wise God had created an orderly universe that can be understood and was worth discovering. So what the Renaissance began, the Reformation basically pushed even more forward with biblical truth. And now all of God's creation had become a legitimate subject to celebrate and explore. Right? So that's huge. Where the arts in the past was only focused on the scriptures, and then it opened up to things that were, it's like God's creation is that great, right? It's a subject that anyone can paint or write or talk about. So it opened up and celebrated creation. Another one is this thing I think is very, very powerful for all of us, and it should be affecting us today. So just as the entire natural order was now considered worthy of study and appreciation, so all forms of human labor came to be seen as valuable service to God. So in the medieval church, there had been a sharp division between sacred and secular vocations or jobs, right? So born more out of Greek philosophy than scriptural teaching. But in the wake of the Reformation, the wall between secular and sacred had been largely removed. Governors, soldiers, artists, homemakers, farmers, merchants, craftsmen were all doing the work of God, no less than pastors and theologians. And this was the Protestant work ethic, marked by honesty, industry, conviction that one's calling was a fulfillment of God's purpose for their life, which included their job. And I think this is a powerful one because Susie talks about this all the time of we have to become those that live with God in our everyday life, at work, at school, wherever we go. And that's something that was a big influence from the Protestant Reformation. The value and rights of individuals was also very affected by the Reformation. So people know that we are all in the image of God. We are the image bearers of God. And all human beings possess intrinsic value and dignity unique in all of creation. So the Reformers recognized and taught this truth, which in time gave shape to modern democratic societies, built around the rights and freedoms of the individual. So if you even look at the founders of the U.S., they believed it to be self-evident that all people are created equal and thus possess certain inalienable rights, right? So when you look at this, these are all things that are stemming from the Protestant Reformation, right? The Reformation that took these biblical principles and they brought it into focus, and it dominated Western political thought. So when you look at so these are all the different things that the church has been doing, but you have to look at the one thing that we have to realize, and this is something that we realize in the principle of gradual history is, Sunstein said in this week's message, water flows from up to down, right? From high to low. But God's history is always low to high. So it's getting better and better and better. So even when we see all the things that are happening for the first 1600 years through the Catholic Church, that was way better than what it was before. But then when the Protestant movement came in, Protestant Reformation came in, it made it even higher. So when you think about this, the church has to always be reforming. And I think this is a very, very important concept that we have to think about our churches too, is even our own churches must continually be developing and getting better and better and better, right? And, we have to understand is the Reformation is not just one thing, this one time in history that all of a sudden the church got better. It's been continuously getting better over and over. Every era of church, every era of culture, they all have strengths and weaknesses, blind spots, whatever it is. Even Western culture, right? Western culture, if you look at today, look at the West right now. They've basically abandoned God and His Word and elevated subjective feelings instead of the ultimate authority of Christ, right? So when we look at this, we have to be those that understand is whether it's our life, whether it's the church, whether it's the mission that we do, whether it's praise, whether it's how you run the service, everything has to reform and get better and better and better, right? Look at what we're facing today in society. We have to get better. We can't, conform to them. We have to get better. And when you look at the reformers at the Protestant Reformation, or look at the apostles when when at the time of Jesus, they had the apostles that were doing the reform for Christianity, the solution is always the same. We as the people of God have to embrace a strong, passionate devotion to the scriptures, to the words of God, to the one that God sent, to God, right? And then what we do is we make our faith stronger and we raise the level of our prayer, of our listening to the word, preaching the word, evangelism, our services, all these things have to reform and get better and better with time. Right? So that I found that to be a very, very interesting article. And I hope it's something that we kind of see that, wow, God is making history and it's getting better with time. Yes, it might not be that great right now. Yes, it might be something it's a little bit difficult for us to just really understand. But I hope that all of us will really be able to understand how much God is making history at this time. All right? So that is the end of the word study for today. Hope you guys enjoyed that. And we're going to get into Provi and the media right after this second break.
Confident, unshaken. We are proud, unwavering. Confident now. We are so proud. Hey, have you caught a vibe by now?
Our clock is ticking, the hands of our clock keep on moving, they never stop. 'Cause we are following the timing of God who is mighty, we don't stop.
I will do the work I must do, I'm the key to the outcome that I want.
With the truth of the times we run diligently, we're making history. I trust in the power that God's given me. I make myself better every day. Since God is with us, supporting us always, we can never lose while we are on this path. No matter what comes our way, whatever may happen now.
Hey, have you caught a vibe by now? So what?
Confident, we're confident, yeah, doesn't matter what may come.
Confident, unshaken.
Confident, we're confident, yeah, come on, babe, we'll stand as
We
one.
are proud, unwavering.
Confident, unshaken.
Confident now.
We are proud, unwavering.
We are so proud.
Confident, we're confident, yeah.
Hey, have you caught a vibe by now? So what?
No matter what happens, we'll turn tables and we'll climb. Grab the time, fix our minds, fix our contradiction, we will shine. We'll shake it up like a sneeze, say God bless you. If there's obstacles to block our way, we'll step right over. Ha ha. Gain momentum, don't tremble, moving forward, just one more step, and now we're going forward. We're following the time, we follow God how we come together, we're stronger. And like heaven, I am established, firm and shaken. And just like the sun, the will of God is never stopping. Like a backpack, God has my back, He's with me, so I'm safe. I'm so confident, I have dignity, whatever it may be. I'm ready to face with energy, battery charged up. I'm set up with the Lord, I'm confident, we're winning. Game, set.
Since God is with us, supporting guiding us always. We can never lose while we are on this path. No matter what comes our way, whatever may happen now. Hey, have you caught a vibe by now?
So what?
Confident, we're confident, yeah, doesn't matter what may come.
Confident, unshaken.
Confident, we're confident, yeah, come with me, we'll stand as one.
We are proud, unwavering.
Confident, unshaken.
Confident, now.
We are proud, unwavering.
We are so proud.
Confident, we're confident, yeah. Hey, have you caught a vibe by now?
So what?
Confident, we're confident, yeah, doesn't matter what may come.
Confident, unshaken.
Confident, we're confident, yeah, come with me, we'll stand as
We
one.
are proud, unwavering.
Confident, unshaken.
Confident, now.
We are proud, unwavering.
We are so proud.
Confident, we're confident, yeah. Hey, have you caught a vibe by now?
So what? Yeah, huh. Since God is with us, we are confident, unshaken. Yeah, huh. The Holy Spirit is with us, we are proud, unwavering. Since God is with us, we are confident, unshaken. The Holy Spirit is with us, we are proud, unwavering. Since we live by God, we'll do it confidently. Confidently, do it confidently.
Hey, have you caught a vibe by now?
So what?
Okay, so let's get into our final segment for today. And of course, we switched it with yesterday because of the trial. So we had Health is Happiness yesterday, and today we're having Provi in the Media. But we had some interesting news that happened. Sunsteam's trial got postponed, right? It's like it actually got, we're like, whoa, it got postponed, right? And I'm going to just go over the article that shows why it got postponed, okay? So it was supposed to be on the 18th, which was yesterday. And actually, Sunsteam and the defense team submitted an application for like a judge recusal, which means to replace a judge. Okay, why? So on the 16th, there was this recusal that was submitted, and from Sunsteam's side, they said from the prosecutor's investigation stage, we raised a question about the possibility of manipulation of the controversial voice recording file. Okay, but the high prosecutor argued back and said, no, this is wrong. But during the trial, the investigator reversed his statement and said that, oh, it was my mistake. And that's why there's more controversy mounting, especially when it comes to that audio file. So what they said, what Sunsteam's defense team said was, despite the fact that there was no substantial evidence from the beginning, and the investigator's statement was reversed. So he said, oh, it's my mistake, I made a mistake kind of thing. The presiding judge of the ongoing case has damaged the principle of presumption of innocence with several preliminary remarks and submitted, and this is why they're submitting an application for challenge, because there is now a possibility of an unfair trial. So what they said about the judge was, in the preliminary remarks of the trial, the judge said some things that kind of pointed that Sunsteam was already guilty. So it goes against the principle of presumption of innocence, and that's why they've submitted a judge recusal, which means they want this judge to be replaced. Because, if they're saying that already before any of the evidence came out, then this judge is already biased, right? And according to, Sunsteam's lawyer, the recorded file that Maple recorded when, she said the recording on Netflix, when she submitted it to the court, she submitted it as important evidence, and it was like part of the prosecution's investigation. Like, it's really, really important. From the very beginning, this audio is important, okay? Now, here's the interesting part. The file was being kept on the iCloud, right, the server, and they said it was the original, okay? Now, during the trial, right, so prior to the adoption of evidence, the prosecution, right, the people on the accuser's side, claimed that the process of downloading the recorded file was intended to be performed through a court demonstration. But just before the demonstration, the investigator accidentally pressed the operation button by mistake, and the recorded file was deleted, so the demonstration could not be performed. However, the defense team argued, think about this. This is what they said. For a file stored in iCloud to be deleted, you need to click 3 times. And even if it's accidentally deleted, it can be recovered from the trash within 1 month. And that's why they're like going, you're not making any sense. So you're saying you mistakenly deleted it with the press of a button. But when you look at iCloud, you need 3 buttons to actually delete something. And even after you delete it, you still have a month to recover it. So what you're saying sounds super suspicious, right? And that's why the controversy is mounting, because there's suspicions of editing, manipulation of the recorded files. And in addition, the inspector, who was an investigator present at the trial, overturned his own statement that the complainant did not submit a recorded file downloaded from iCloud as evidence. So in the beginning, he said they did, but now he said no, they didn't, and testified that the contents of the report were also mistaken memory and misunderstanding. So this is why our side is claiming that the evidence revealed during the trial has already violated procedural legitimacy, attention, and that's why now we're just waiting to see what the prosecution's response is going to be. So instead of being held yesterday, the trial was postponed for probably about 2 to 3 months because of the request of this judicial recusal, right? So it gives us 2 to 3 months more to pray about this, and this judicial recusal is a process where you're concerned that a judge may conduct an unfair trial, right? And just to let you guys know, this is not something that is normally it is not normally honored. Like usually it's like, no, we're going to continue with it. In like all throughout history, I think I was reading someone saying that I think only like 10 to 15 have ever gone through in the entire court's history, right? So it's something that we do need to pray about, but we've gotten this far already. And one thing about Korea is public opinion makes a huge difference, and this is why I think these protests, these peaceful protests that Providence churches are doing over there in Korea, I think it can make a good effect if they make enough of them. And I also think that one of the best ways that we're able to support them, obviously, number one, is through prayer. But also, I do think some of these YouTube channels, like subscribe and just watch some of the videos, even if you don't understand. Or, there's going to be subtitles for some of them too. But it will help out. And the government's going to see that a ton of people are watching these things. So that is the news. We're not going to have this trial until 2 to 3 months later, which means what? It's July right now. So like August, it's either September or October. We're going to see this actually happen. So it's something that we have more time to pray about. And it feels like the prayer that we did for 21 days is working, because now we have 2 to 3 extra months. We can do more peaceful protests, and we're able to kind of get the public opinion to sway a bit that, hey, these things were done in a wrong way. So let's continue the prayer. I'm not sure I guess we'll get an announcement on Sunday to see if we continue or start another like a 40-day condition or something along that line, because we have 2 to 3 months. So let's see what happens here. Okay. So that is kind of the update you guys got for Provi in the media and what was supposed to happen, but it didn't actually happen. But personally, it looks like it's good news, right? Good news meaning they're at least looking into it. They're at least thinking about it and talking about it too. Either way, okay. So there it is. That is Provi in the media, and that is also this week's Wednesday podcast. I hope you guys really enjoyed it as I have. Keep your comments going. Would love to hear what you guys are thinking. And then we'll see you guys again tomorrow. Oh, remember guys, tomorrow is Q&A Thursday. Go ahead, send your questions, and we'd love to hear what types of questions you guys have these days. All right? So everyone, enjoy your Wednesday service, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and feel your mind.
I'm burning with desire.